You don't have any.
Hi, Mr. Roper.
What kind of house is it without any baked beans?
A house without a can?
If you grew up watching Three's Company, you know exactly how those Tuesday nights felt. That theme song starting up, the promise of 30 minutes of pure, uncomplicated fun. It ran from 1977 to 1984 on ABC, became one of the most watched shows of its era, and launched careers that went in directions nobody could have predicted. Some of these people became legends. Some reinvented themselves completely, and some are simply gone. Here's the Three's Company cast, then and now in 2026, and I bet you won't recognize all of them today. John Ritter, Jack Tripper. John Ritter was born on September the 17th, 1948 in Burbank, California. His father was Tex Ritter, the singing cowboy and country music star who appeared in dozens of Western films, and whose name is one of the most recognized in country music history. His mother was actress Dorothy Faye. John grew up in a household where entertainment was the family business, but he did not lean on that inheritance. He attended Hollywood High School, earned a degree in theater arts from the University of Southern California in 1970, and spent the early 1970s working his way through small television roles, guest appearances, bit parts, the kind of work that keeps an actor employed and visible without yet making him famous. He appeared in The Mary Tyler Moore Show, MASH, Hawaii Five-0, and many other programs before Three's Company. The premise was simple. Jack, a cooking school student, moves into a Santa Monica apartment with two women, Chrissy Snow and Janet Wood, and agrees to pretend to be gay so that the suspicious building landlord, Mr. Roper, won't object. What made the show work was Ritter's physical comedy. He had studied the greats, Cary Grant, Jack Lemmon, Buster Keaton, and he brought a level of commitment to a pratfall or a double take that most sitcom actors couldn't match. He tripped, stumbled, reacted, and recovered with the timing of someone who had spent years learning exactly how to make a room full of people laugh at exactly the right moment. He also had a quality that is harder to describe: warmth. Jack Tripper was a character the audience genuinely liked, not just one they laughed at, and that distinction was entirely about what Ritter brought to the role rather than what was written on the page. The show was an immediate hit. By its second season, Three's Company was the third highest rated program on American television. By its third and fourth seasons, it was in the top two, regularly competing for the #1 slot with Dallas. Ritter won a Primetime Emmy Award and a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a Comedy Series. His Emmy came in 1984, the show's final season. After Three's Company ended, Ritter transitioned into the spin-off Three's a Crowd, which ran for one season in 1984 to 1985. He then moved freely between television movies, theatrical features, and stage work with a consistency that kept him genuinely busy. He appeared in Real Men in 1987, Problem Child in 1990, and Problem Child 2 in 1991. In 1992, he was part of the ensemble cast in Noises Off, the stage-to-screen adaptation of the Michael Frayn farce. He had a small but memorable role in Sling Blade in 1996, the Billy Bob Thornton film that won the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. In 2003, he appeared in Bad Santa, a dark, hard-edged comedy that was a deliberate departure from the wholesome image most people associated with him, and one he seemed to enjoy enormously. He also worked steadily in theater. His 9-month run in Neil Simon's The Dinner Party on Broadway in 2000 brought him critical notices that reinforced his standing as a performer who could do considerably more than the physical comedy that had made him famous. By 2002, he had found a second major television hit, ABC's 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter, a family comedy in which he played a sports writer trying to navigate the particular difficulties of raising 2 teenage daughters. The show was performing well and looked like it had real staying power. On September 11th, 2003, the day that would have been his daughter Stella's 5th birthday, while working on the set of 8 Simple Rules, Ritter collapsed. He complained of severe chest pain and nausea. He was taken to Providence St. Joseph Medical Center in Burbank, where the chest pain was initially treated as a heart attack. The actual cause was an aortic dissection, a catastrophic tear in the inner layer of the aorta, the body's main artery, a condition that had gone undetected and was initially and fatally misdiagnosed. Anticoagulants given for the presumed heart attack can worsen an aortic dissection, which may have contributed to the rapid deterioration. He died that evening at 10:48 p.m. He was 54 years old. He was 6 days short of his 55th birthday. His family filed a lawsuit against the treating physicians. The case went to trial and was eventually settled. Weeks after his death, his wife, actress Amy Yazbek, established the John Ritter Foundation for Aortic Health, which has since funded research at the University of Texas Health Science Center, provided physician education, and raised public awareness of the condition that took his life. Both his son, Jason Ritter, and his son, Tyler Ritter, followed their father into acting. Jason Ritter is perhaps best known for his role in the television series Parenthood. John Ritter and his father Tex have side-by-side stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Suzanne Summers, Chrissy Snow. Suzanne Summers was born Suzanne Marie Mahoney on October 16, 1946, in San Bruno, California. Her early life was difficult. Her father was an abusive alcoholic, and she is described growing up in the Bay Area as a period defined by instability and fear. She married young, became a mother at 18, and spent her early adult years working as a model and landing small roles in television before finding her footing as an actress. She appeared in Lots of Luck and The Rockford Files before her visibility grew, but the real early milestone came in 1973. She had a brief, wordless role in George Lucas's American Graffiti in 1973. She was the mysterious blonde in The White Thunderbird that Harrison Ford's character follows through the night and never quite catches. It was barely a role, but people remembered the face. When she auditioned for Three's Company in 1976, she was already 30 years old, though the network and the public treated her as a newcomer. As Chrissy Snow, the bubbly, sweet, and famously naive blonde roommate, Summers quickly became a phenomenon. The character was physically broad in its comedy, but required considerable skill to play without condescension, and Summers made Chrissy genuinely warm and lovable rather than simply a punchline. The show's writers later acknowledged that Chrissy worked as a character because Summers gave her a sweetness that made the audience protective of her, not just amused by her. By 1980, Summers was one of the most recognized faces in American television, appearing on magazine covers, commanding significant fees, and generating a level of cultural attention that the show itself had never quite anticipated. That star power was exactly what brought her career at the show to an end. Summers wanted to renegotiate her contract and sought a salary closer to what she believed her profile deserved. She was earning $30,000 per episode at the time and asked for $150,000. A BC and the producers refused. Her husband and manager, Alan Hamill, later described the situation clearly. The network had recently settled a similar pay dispute with the women on Laverne and Shirley and had decided this time to hold the line publicly. Summers missed 2 episode tapings. She was fired. A public narrative took hold. She was greedy, she was difficult, and she later said that the portrayal was deeply unfair. "What I was asking for, I still think I deserved," she said years afterward. She filed a $2 million lawsuit against ABC and settled for $30,000. In the immediate aftermath, bookings dried up. She later said her career was effectively dead for several years. She rebuilt it entirely on her own terms. She performed in Las Vegas, staging a live review with dancers and a full orchestra. She was named Las Vegas Entertainer of the Year in 1987. alongside Frank Sinatra. She returned to television in 1991 with the family comedy Step by Step, playing Carol Foster Lambert opposite Patrick Duffy. The show ran for 7 seasons on ABC. She was also a prominent entrepreneur. The Thigh Master exercise device became genuinely iconic, and she became one of the most recognized infomercial personalities of the 1990s. She was inducted into the Direct Response Hall of Fame in 2014. She wrote best-selling books on health and wellness. She co-hosted a 2012 Lifetime talk show called The Suzanne Show, and on a separate online program in 2012 called Breaking Through, she and Joyce DeWitt publicly reconciled. The two women had not spoken for more than 30 years. She had visited John Ritter at his hospital bedside the night he died in 2003 and had made peace with him there. She had been diagnosed with breast cancer in 2000. She treated it, went into remission, and was open about the experience, advocating for alternative approaches alongside conventional treatment, which drew criticism from some medical authorities. The cancer returned in her later years. She died peacefully at her home in Palm Springs on October 15, 2023, one day before her 77th birthday, surrounded by her husband Alan and her family. Joyce DeWitt, Janet Wood. Joyce DeWitt was born on April 23, 1949, in Wheeling, West Virginia, and grew up in Speedway, Indiana, a small Indianapolis suburb best known for the motor speedway that gave the town its name. She discovered acting at 13 and pursued it with the seriousness of someone who had decided early that it was not a passing interest. She competed in speech and debate tournaments in high school, worked in the ticket office at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and eventually moved on to formal training. She earned a bachelor's degree from Ball State University and a Master of Fine Arts in Theater from UCLA. She came close to landing a recurring role on Happy Days before Three's Company. She auditioned to play one of Fonzie's girlfriends. She didn't get it. Producers said she looked too young and too short for the role. Weeks later, she got the role of Janet Wood. She played Janet for all 8 seasons of the show, the only cast member to do so. Janet was the grounded one, the florist, the organizer, the sensible counterweight to Jack's chaos and Chrissy's innocent bewilderment. It was one of those roles that required the performer to make the straightest part in a very broad comedy feel real and rooted, and DeWitt did it with a consistency that never wavered over 172 episodes. She was the person the audience trusted when everything else on screen was in motion, and that was not an easy function to fill without becoming either a stick figure or a scene stealer. She did neither. She was simply Janet, and the show needed her to be. On set, she became known for one specific rule. She always wore pantyhose or tights while filming, regardless of the outfit. It was a personal decision that didn't sit well with everyone behind the scenes. It did, however, attract the attention of Legs hosiery manufacturers, who signed her as a spokesperson. After the show ended in 1984, DeWitt largely stepped back from the relentless visibility that television stardom demands. There was a period of personal difficulty in the late 1990s. She was arrested in 1984 for driving under the influence, an incident she has addressed openly over the years, and she has spoken about the challenges of finding professional purpose after a role that defined the entire decade of her 30s. She worked primarily in theater, regional productions, touring productions, community stages, and accepted screen work selectively. She appeared in a 2018 production of Nonsense in New Jersey, and her most recent screen credit was a role in the 2022 independent film Ask Me to Dance. In 2023, she appeared in a music video for the Davison Brothers Band's song, Home. She has remained a steady and genuine supporter of the John Ritter Foundation, attending the 2024 Evening from the Heart Gala in Los Angeles, alongside John's son Tyler Ritter and her former co-star Priscilla Barnes. She has said that the gala is among the events she will not miss. As of April 2025, Joyce DeWitt celebrated her 76th birthday. She is the last surviving member of the show's original core cast, the final person who was there from episode 1 of Three's Company and is still here to talk about it. Norman Fell, Mr. Stanley Roper. Norman Fell was born Norman Noah Feld on March 24, 1924, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He served in the United States Army during World War II, flying as a tail gunner in the Pacific Theater. Not a background that obviously points toward a career in situation comedy, but one that gave him a directness and a dry, no-nonsense quality that served the character of Stanley Roper perfectly. He used the GI Bill to study acting at Temple University after the war and spent years in New York theater before relocating to Los Angeles and building a film career. By the time he joined Three's Company in 1977, he was a recognizable character actor with a long list of credits. He had appeared in The Graduate in 1967 as a suspicious landlord who doesn't trust Dustin Hoffman's character, a role with some obvious resonance to what he'd be doing on Three's Company, in Bullet in 1968 alongside Steve McQueen, in Catch-22 in 1970, and in Ocean's 11, the original 1960 version with Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack. As Mr. Roper, the grumpy, suspicious landlord perpetually convinced that Jack Tripper was not actually gay, Fell found a character that perfectly suited his naturally skeptical, low-key exasperation. He won a Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actor in a television series in 1979 for the role. In 1979, he and Audra Lindley left Three's Company for their own spin-off, The Ropers, which ran for 2 seasons on ABC. After that, Fell continued working in film and television, including a role in Transylvania 6-5000 in 1985 and an appearance in For the Boys with Bette Midler in 1991. Norman Fell died on December 14, 1998 in Los Angeles of cancer. He was 74 years old. Audra Lindley, Mrs. Helen Roper. Audra Lindley was born on September 24, 1918 in Los Angeles, California. She was trained in theater, had a career on the New York stage going back decades, and brought a level of craft to her supporting role that was easy to overlook amid the show's more obvious comedic showboating. She was in her late 50s when Three's Company premiered, one of the oldest regular cast members, and one of the most seasoned. As Helen Roper, Stanley's perpetually underappreciated wife, who wore caftans, maintained a dry and resigned view of her marriage, and spent most of the show making sardonic observations about what married life had delivered. Lindley created a character that generated its own cult, following quite separately from the show's main trio. Mrs. Roper became an icon of a particular kind, the woman who had signed on for something and made the best of it with good humor and an unflinching eye. The caftans she wore became so associated with the character that they've never entirely left the cultural conversation. In 2020, Kelly Ripa wore a caftan while broadcasting Live from Home during the pandemic lockdown and described being called Mrs. Roper by everyone she knew. Lindley left the show with Norman Fell for the Ropers spin-off and continued working in film and television after that series ended. She appeared in The Heartbreak Kid in 1972, Troop Beverly Hills in 1989, and The Relic in 1997. She was reportedly working up until 1 month before her death, filming an episode of Sybil when leukemia was diagnosed. She died on October 16, 1997, in Los Angeles. She was 79 years old. Don Knotts, Ralph Furley. Don Knotts was born Jesse Donald Knotts on July 21, 1924 in Morgantown, West Virginia. He grew up in poverty during the Depression, and the Knotts family's circumstances were genuinely difficult. His father suffered from serious mental illness, and Don described his childhood years in later interviews as shaped by hardship and uncertainty. He discovered he could make people laugh, and he held on to that skill. He began performing ventriloquism and stand-up comedy in small clubs as a teenager. served in the United States Army during World War II as an entertainer in a production called Stars and Gripes, and eventually made his way to New York after the war, where he appeared on Broadway and became a regular on The Steve Allen Show in the mid-1950s. His defining role before Three's Company was Barney Fife, the jittery, well-intentioned, perpetually overconfident deputy sheriff on The Andy Griffith Show, a performance that earned him 5 Primetime Emmy Awards and established him as one of the finest comedic actors in American television history. Barney Fife was a character of genuine depth, a man of limited ability and unlimited self-belief, played by Knotts with an affection and precision that made him beloved rather than simply ridiculous. TV Guide ranked him number 27 on its list of the 50 greatest TV stars of all time in 1996. He joined Three's Company in 1979 as Ralph Furley, the new building manager after the Ropers departed for their spin-off. Furley was physically flamboyant, leisure suits, wide collars, the wardrobe of a man who genuinely believed he was cutting a dash, and was convinced of his own irresistibility to women despite abundant evidence to the contrary. The role had originally been written as a minor recurring character. Knotts was so effortlessly funny in it that the writers expanded it substantially, giving him more screen time and more fully integrating him into the show's central dynamics. He played Ralph Furley through the show's final season in 1984, 5 seasons in all. After Three's Company, he appeared in several television films and made guest appearances on various programs. He had a cameo in Pleasantville in 1998. He appeared alongside Adam Sandler in Chicken Little in 2005. Don Knotts died on February 24, 2006, at UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles, of pulmonary and respiratory complications related to lung cancer. He was 81 years old. Andy Griffith, who remained his close friend until the end of his life, said simply, "Don meant everything to me." Richard Klein, Larry Dallas. Richard Klein played Larry Dallas, Jack Tripper's best friend, a used car salesman and self-described ladies' man who served as the show's principal supporting character outside the main apartment. He was born on April 29, 1944, in New York City, trained as a stage actor, and brought a different energy to the show than its 3 leads, a kind of breezy, street-smart confidence that contrasted effectively with Jack's anxious charm. Larry appeared throughout the run of the series, a constant presence at the Regal Beagle Bar and in the apartment building's social orbit. The character was never quite as finely drawn as Jack, Janet, or the successive blondes, but Klein made him consistently funny and gave him a lived-in quality that made Larry feel like a real person rather than a plot device. After Three's Company ended, Klein continued to work steadily in television across the following 4 decades. His credits include Family Matters, Seinfeld, The Resident, and dozens of other productions. He is one of those actors who has worked continuously without ever becoming a household name again, which says something about the particular way that television stardom, especially in that era, can both make and contain a career. He has participated in cast reunions over the years, appearing at The Hollywood Show in 2017 alongside Joyce DeWitt, Priscilla Barnes, and Jenna Lee Harrison, and he has remained genuinely connected to the show's fans and its community. As of early 2026, Richard Klein is 81 years old. His most recent credit is a supporting role in the 2025 television movie Jimmy's and Jenny's. Of the cast members who are still alive, he and Joyce DeWitt are the 2 who have maintained the longest continuous relationship with the entertainment industry since the show ended. Jenna Lee Harrison, Cindy Snow. Jenna Lee Harrison was born on June 12, 1958, and had been working as a cheerleader for the Los Angeles Rams from 1978 to 1980, before she found herself stepping into one of the most difficult roles in television, replacing a star. When Suzanne Summers' salary dispute ended in her dismissal, the producers needed to maintain the dynamic of the show without its most famous blonde. Harrison was cast as Cindy Snow, Chrissy's first cousin, who moved into the apartment at the start of season 5. She was 21 years old when she took the role. It was not an easy position to be in. The public's attachment to Chrissy was strong, and some of that attachment, or its absence, was directed at the new character rather than evaluated on its own terms. Harrison appeared in seasons 5 and 6, was gradually given less screen time as the season progressed, and was eventually written out of the apartment when Priscilla Barnes joined the cast. She remained a recurring character into season 6, but was quietly dropped without explanation. She told Fox News in 2025 that her experience on set was warm and supportive. "When I got on Three's Company, I was welcomed with open arms. They treated me lovely. They treated me like a little sister." After Three's Company, Harrison joined the cast of Dallas from 1984 to 1987, playing Jamie Ewing. She worked in television through the 1990s and into the early 2000s, with her last credited role in 2002. She has since retired from acting and has recently co-hosted a podcast called Stall Talk. She is 67 years old in 2026. Priscilla Barnes, Terry Alden. Priscilla Barnes was born in 1953 or 1954 in Fort Dix, New Jersey. She entered Three's Company in season 6, joining the show as the permanent replacement for Chrissy Snow. Her character, Terry Alden, was a nurse, smart, capable, and physically distinct from the previous blonde roommates in ways the writers made a point of emphasizing. There is a genuine irony in Barnes's connection to the show. She had originally auditioned for the role of Chrissy Snow in 1976. Before the series went to air, she didn't get the part. Suzanne Summers did. 5 years later, Barnes was cast as the character brought in specifically because Summers was no longer there. Barnes stayed through the show's final season in 1984. She has said in interviews, most notably on E! True Hollywood Story in 1998, that she considered the 3 years on Three's Company to be among the most professionally difficult of her life, a description that stands in notable contrast to the cheerful tone of everything she was doing on screen. After the show, Barnes built a diverse film career, appearing in License to Kill in 1989, one of the James Bond films, and in Wes Craven's The Devil's Rejects in 2005. She appeared in Mallrats in 1995 and in multiple other film and television productions across the decades. More recently, she had a role in Jane the Virgin on the CW network and appeared at the 2024 Evening from the Heart Gala alongside Joyce DeWitt. She is currently in her early 70s. Three's Company ran for 8 seasons, 172 episodes from March 1977 to September 1984, and gave American television some of its most enduring characters. It was a show about 3 people sharing a small apartment in Santa Monica, pretending to be something they weren't to satisfy a landlord who didn't want to believe what was in front of him. That was the premise. What it became was something more than that, a place where a generation of Americans, many of them navigating difficult years, could go twice a week and laugh without qualification. Looking back at where these people ended up in 2026, the picture is not a simple one. John Ritter was at the peak of a genuine second act when he died at 54. Suzanne Summers spent years being written off, and then spent more years proving that the write-off had been wrong. Joyce DeWitt turned away from the spotlight and found a different kind of life in theater, still here and still connected. The landlords, Norman Fell, Audra Lindley, Don Knotts, each left behind their own chapter before they were gone. Richard Klein quietly kept working for 4 decades, and the 2 women who stepped into Chrissy's role, Jenna Lee Harrison and Priscilla Barnes, each lived out a version of what it means to be part of a show without being central to how the world remembers it. Some of them recognized each other for the rest of their lives. Some of them didn't speak for 30 years. Some of them only made peace when it was almost too late. Three's Company is still there in syndication,